All right, so we figured out a different way. And I'm leaving there now. I had to pick up some other paperwork. The problem is the method is a forgotten method, like Tesla papers are forgotten. And yeah, the science is there. Yes, the principle is there. We all know about something called plasma. We talked about plasma fusion, but unfortunately, no one's doing it except for Tesla. Even though he proved it all could be done, unfortunately, those methods of doing it has been lost. And that's actually what I mean. The paperwork has just been unused for so long, they stopped printing. There's no official form because nobody's been using them. It's just simply fallen out of use. And having fallen out of use for so long, it's a forgotten function. Now, I will tell you right now that the complaint I wrote was in common law. It does not quote a statute. It quotes direct meaning of the law in common law, not the statute. Reason why I did that was to give it the most broad interpretation, whether you're working with common law or otherwise. Was there harm done? Answer yes. And that's what a proper charge looks like. Example, that you did willingly and knowingly walk into a Walmart located at such and such and such and such street, such and such and such and such town, okay, and attempted to remove the shelf and walk directly out of the store, depriving the store of its money. It doesn't tell how this was done. It doesn't tell you put it under your shirt. It doesn't say anything. It just says the crime that you committed. Then it says the statute or the code that you violated. Okay? So common law, even when you're working with statutes, now the state cannot describe a general wrong. Something that is considered a general wrong. And that's another thing that you're going to have to realize is that our courts, they call them a general court, meaning that the civil rules and the criminal rules are active within the same court venue at the same time. Example, if you have a civil event and evidence purporting a murder and testimony to support that shows up during the trial, do you think you're going to be able to walk out of that courtroom if they found evidence in a civil trial? Let's say you had an argument with the next door neighbor on whose grass is going to be cut or who's going to cut something as trivial as that. It's a civil action. You're just arguing with your neighbor, and all of a sudden, because of the evidence that surfaced and who's going to cut that grass, a dead body was discovered and evidence of who killed them was discovered. That person is not leaving the courtroom. He will be arrested. Why? Because both civil and criminal court rules, the only thing that would be exempt from that would be like one of these FISA courts. Okay, for national security reasons. We can discuss some of these things, but not all of them. And it'll be, of course, selective in government's favor, so stay out of a FISA court. But that's about the only thing I can imagine that would not be subject to exactly what I just said. Now, I can actually prove that by an otherwise unqualified pro bono submission to the U.S. Supreme Court. The only reason why that was accepted, placed on the docket, and I know this is true, is because they can't obstruct it doesn't matter if it came, and it doesn't matter if the format's perfect. It doesn't matter this. It doesn't matter that. It's describing a grievance. And to obstruct that and to say that they will not put that on the docket is an obstruction of a government process. They can't do that. That's the reason why I was able to get on the docket, whereas 10,000 to 15,000 licensed lawyers could not get on the docket that week. But I did, because I knew what my pro se powers were. And the fact that if I had perfected the docket, would that mean that it would be accepted if I perfected the format in which they wished it to be submitted in? According to the clerk, yes, but that's before pro se. So what I did write, other than its format, where it has all the accordances written into a single page. Every statute that you quoted has to be researched and then written into how it applies to that case on a separate, well, actually in a separate field than the body. So that's what they didn't like. It's like, terribly sorry, it's pro se, I'm not going to do that. Well, you should. Well, that's nice. Go ahead and file it anyway. Go ahead and put this pro se on the docket of the U.S. Supreme Court, only because guess what? It doesn't matter the format. Can you read it? Does it function within common law? Does it have a claim? You can't refuse the docket then. And that's how I got it on the docket. You want to sit there and say I'm bragging about my prowess in writing a document? No. I'm bragging about the prowess of the fact that they couldn't refuse it. And then, again, if you're just tuning in, I'm going to remind you, I am the liaison, the press liaison, reporting on this process. And it'll be, of course, selective in government's favor, so stay out of a FISA court, but that's about the only thing that I can imagine that would not be subject to exactly what I just said. Now, I can actually prove that by an otherwise unqualified pro bono submission to the U.S. Supreme Court. The only reason why that was accepted, placed on the docket, and I know this is true, is because they can't obstruct it doesn't matter if it came, and it doesn't matter if the format's perfect. It doesn't matter this, it doesn't matter that. It's describing a grievance. And to obstruct that and to say that they will not put that on the docket is an obstruction of a government process. They can't do that. That's the reason why I was able to get on the docket, whereas 10,000 to 15,000 licensed lawyers could not get on the docket that week. But I did, because I knew what my pro se powers were. And the fact that if I had perfected the docket, would that mean that it would be accepted if I perfected the format in which they wished it to be submitted in? According to the clerk, yes, but that's before pro se. So what I did write, other than its format, where it has all the accordances written into a single page, every statute that you quoted has to be researched and then written into how it applies to that case on a separate, well, actually in a separate field than the body. So that's what they didn't like. It's like, terribly sorry, it's pro se, I'm not going to do that. Well, you should. Well, that's nice. Go ahead and file it anyway. Go ahead and put this pro se on the docket of the U.S. Supreme Court, only because guess what? It doesn't matter the format. Can you read it? Does it function within common law? Does it have a claim? You can't refuse the docket then. And that's how I got it on the docket. You want to sit there and say I'm bragging about my prowess in writing a document? No, I'm bragging about the prowess of the fact that they couldn't refuse it. And then, again, if you're just tuning in, I'm going to remind you, I am the liaison, the press liaison, reporting on this process. You don't have to ask, oh, can he do this? Yes, that's what America is called. That's what a republic is. I can do it. He's become the president of the United States. That's it. He can become the governor at 7 years old. He can become the mayor at 7 years old. Did you know that? Did you know at 7 years old his rights for free speech are fully protected, whether he's at school or not? The first fault. So first fault that the school took action against him. That's your first fault. That means that they violated his rights. It doesn't matter if it kept the class quiet. He objected to them sticking their heads into a bucket of water, okay? So therefore, he can't talk because it would disrupt the class from everybody else sticking their heads in the water. No, okay? You can't use that for an excuse. Freedom of speech is freedom of speech. So they have made these backwards law that literally sounds like it's something legitimate, but if you look at it, you realize that it removes something else. And they keep this pattern of behavior going. I wish I had something to haul that. Anyway, yeah, I mean, all that money, the only thing I did was buy tools and a couple of cars and pay off my child support, get my driver's license back and pay the insurance. Oh, that's a lot of money to sit there and throw. It wasn't thrown away. It didn't work as supposed to. Am I hurt? Yes, I'm hurt. Am I physically uncomfortable? No. So when the finances get that bad, I'm not giving up my guitars. I finally got them back. I haven't had a guitar in my hand in 15 years. I finally got them back, and I haven't even had about 12 hours with them in my hands yet. I am not giving them up. So that's about the only thing that I have that I can actually sell. A little bit of the sound. Oh, I've got my 2 guitars and a drum set, but I'm not getting rid of it. And I got a dog. Anyway, so this is how it breaks down. Yes, you can file a complaint. Yes. No, it has not been used for a long time. Will the procedure that we are reinventing be accepted by the judge? Maybe. So the answers are yes, no, and maybe. All right. We know that it should be possible. For there not be to be a desk to accept it is also possible. There may not be a desk that they know of to put that paperwork on anymore. But the fact that I can make that paperwork is not being challenged. Okay. They just don't know how to do it. This is brand new territory for these people. And the last time it was done, heck, these people were, trying to figure out which end of the big wheel to sit on. That doesn't mean that it's not possible, and doesn't mean that it should not or could not be done. It only means it hasn't been done for a while. And how do we do that again? How do we lift a 50-ton block, 300 feet in the air and put it on the top of the pyramid? How are we going to do that? Any answers? We've got 50-ton blocks sitting on top of the pyramid, so obviously we can do it, right? That's the problem. So we've invented a new way. We've got another way. Seeing the fact that I don't have money to be a prosecutor. Damn, should I take the other vehicle? I don't know if I should take my work truck or not. I don't think so. That is just too devastating on gas. Anyway, to get back to this. So, in one instance, there's no room for it to pass through the prosecutor's office. In the second instance, there is. And that means that I get a poor man's application. I fill it out. I file it pending civil with, if it is accepted, then it is converted at that time to a criminal case and forwarded to the prosecutor's office. Now, again, these things haven't been done in a long time. And for anybody working at the courthouse, it hasn't been done in living memory. That's the reason why it is exciting, because there has to be a process. There cannot be an obstruction from that impossibility. That's what it's referred to, legal impossibility. I do wish I had vents. Anyway, let's try this. Anyway, so one of the issues is, yes, any citizen can file a criminal. This much is the basis in which our system is made. Now, here's another thing that you might want to consider, is you are not a prosecutor. So if you file it, guess what? You're all by yourself. No. Same reason that we have the public defender's office is the same adaptation in which you should be able to, in other words, if I can address the public defender's office, I should be able to address the public prosecutor's office. In theory, it's supposed to be a mirror of each other, because not everybody's right? Not everybody is a victim. So there's only 2 doors. On those 2 doors, there are 2 labels, plaintiff or petitioner, and on the other door it says defendant or recipient. That's it. Doesn't say criminal or civil, because of the general court. Now, this broadcast, do not call. Please stop calling. I am liaison, and I will keep you informed of everything that we're discovering. But until this is done, yes, no, maybe. Yes, you can file a complaint. No, it hasn't been used in a long time. Will this mythology work? Maybe. But it will pave the way to file a criminal lawsuit against any criminal lawsuit. It's still a tort. You're still asking for torts. There's only one method in order to resolve a wrong, according to federal and state court. You know what that is? There's only one way. It's not jail. Jail is a sanction for not being able to pay that monetary amount. If you were able to pay the monetary amount, you can technically get away with murder, literally, legally, lawfully, because you made amends. Terribly sorry for the loss of your husband. He happened to be in the wrong place. You're $50,000. Shut the fuck up and leave me alone. If that was the only crime committed, or even if it was a questionable crime, they've already made amends for it, and it was a monetary amend. There is no amending a crime with time in prison. Completely different type of thing. So the only remedy whether it be criminal or civil, that a court actually has then would be monetary compensation. Now, there's a change that occurs when you refer to as a capital crime. In other words, it's a crime established in the morality of the crime, rather than the definition of the crime, the description in the statute. There's a line there. And if it's a statute or a codified, but basically things like murder, theft, okay, is covered under that. There really isn't that many things you can do that would actually be considered a capital crime. One of them is extortion, which is basically the same thing as murder if you want to sit there and talk about violences, and anything leading up to murder. So extortion is out of the question. Thinking of fraud, extortion, fraud is not something that you can violently respond to. So fraud is actually a gray area within the codified codes. If you look at it from a morality standpoint, yes, there's loss, this, that, and the other thing, but fraud is normally not committed, okay, in the exercise of violence. Well, in the exercise of, but violence is not part of the exercise of fraud in most part, okay? So that's kind of where that personal injury thing starts becoming hazy in the form of the law, and where you got to draw one line. You have a trialable offense regardless of the evidence. You can't have a directed finding there because your facts are going to be contrary. You can't ask for a contest of fact, then it's a trialable. You can't ask for a dismissal. You have a contradiction in the claims that there is a factual contradiction. As soon as you describe a factual contradiction, guess what? You're going to trial. You will not successfully litigate a motion to dismiss. And that's the reason why I already won this motion with the county, because they immediately contest the facts of the case in their motion to dismiss. Well, that just legitimizes the case that has to go forward to trial. A lot of people want to say that only two conditions exist in their behalf. And then they want to say, oh, well, there's three conditions. There's yes, there's no, and then, well, if I want to. Creating a condition that does not exist. It doesn't exist. Not if you want to. Either you did or you did not. The question is a binary question. Either you did steal something or you did not steal something. And there isn't, well, if I did this and stood on one hand, for 30 minutes and then stood on my foot for 20 without putting my other foot down, then it's perfectly legal. No, you don't have an argument for that. In fraud, you do. In extortion, you don't have an argument for that because there's no way in either condition of an extortion not to be enforced by either violence or loss. So extortion is not something that is a questionable field. Fraud is. And the fraud that they're perpetrating, as soon as they pose an argument, they have actually just conceded to a trial. Mechanics of logic. I caught it in court. I don't know if anyone actually recorded the TRO hearing, but I caught it in court where he implicated himself twice. Judge caught it. There wasn't any prosecutor there, but there's two guards. No reason other than to observe what's going on. They weren't there because I could become violent in court. They were there because they're bloody well curious, and I've talked to them 100 times before, coming in and out. You don't know how often I go to this. I didn't like what I just seen. Anyway, you don't know how I go to this courthouse. The clerks know me by name. Half of them sigh when they see me. The other half were kind of like, he's back. So yeah, there's a mixed reception I get at the courthouse, but they know that I'm not a threat. And the reason why those sheriffs are in there is to observe, because everyone's curious at what I'm doing. I'm not being offensive. I'm not raising my voice. I'm not dancing and yelling and screaming outside their office. Have their cooperation. Memorandum fucking off the hook. And yeah, being the fact that you're an activist, 303, Mr. 303, being the fact that you are an activist and, straighten out the system, straighten people's minds out. Guess what? You're an otherwise unwilling participant in this test of the law. Congratulations, you're a useful idiot. I can't think of it happening to a better person. Now, here's the logic I have to present to the court, that not all crimes can be investigated, nor or reported on by the police. We just simply don't have the manpower. Currently, Fort Collins is down a couple more officers due to some recent domestic issues and don't have the manpower to handle all the crime in this town. Does that no? That just means that our public servants, we don't have enough of it in order to process it. Does that mean that there is no process for a regular citizen to go in and actually file a criminal complaint? No, it just means that there hasn't been a necessity for doing so because we have had manpower up until now. How's that for an argument? So if the defunding of the police does that mean that we no longer have a criminal system that is operating for we the people? It's a legal impossibility.